Right. So in today's class, we're supposed to be going with a new topic, guys, called web application penetration testing. This is basically where you try to find vulnerabilities in websites. Okay. Now, this is altogether a different course in itself, guys, as I think I've mentioned this a couple of times earlier as well. This is a course separately from CH, okay, and it works on a framework called the OWASP Top 10 framework. OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Pen Testing Framework. So this framework basically gives a list of top 10 vulnerabilities from a survey on which vulnerabilities have been popular in the recent years. Okay. And your job as a web application penetration tester is to see to it that these 10 vulnerabilities do not exist on that website. So if any of these exist, it's your job to remediate them. And if none of them exist, you can certify that the website is complying with all the security terms or the security norms, and the website is secure from cyber threats. Okay. So as a web penetration tester, it's your responsibility to see to that these top 10 vulnerabilities don't exist in a website. Okay. So again, definitely we can't cover all the top 10 in our CH course, but again, we'll cover a few of them basically, again, on the top, over the top in the CH, in our classes today and tomorrow. Okay. So the vulnerability we're going to discuss today is the injection vulnerability, okay, where you can inject malicious payloads like SQL queries, okay, to perform SQL injection attacks, okay. So when you talk about SQL injection, this is a database vulnerability where a hacker or again a malicious actor tries to inject malicious SQL queries or malicious SQL payloads in order to execute commands or unwanted actions such as getting access to the data within the database without authentication. Okay, that's an important point to know. So without even having authentication to the server or to the database, you can still access the data within the database or log in as the admin user by using some malicious SQL queries. Okay, but before we get into the attack, we need to understand what the structure of a database is. Okay, so that's why I've drawn this diagram here, right before we started the session. Okay. So basically, whenever you have a login page, guys, let's say your facebook.com, your gmail.com, or whatever it is, whenever there's a login page, and whenever you enter any username and password here, that username and password is sent in the format of a query. So if I enter the username Shoaib, and if I enter a password here, let's say Shoaib @321. So this username and password, as mentioned, is sent in the format of a query to the database here. So a query gets generated from your browser, and that SQL query is sent to the database here to verify those authentication details. Okay. Now this is the syntax of a default query, guys. Select star. Star indicates from select all values from a so-and-so table where a so-and-so column has a so-and-so value in it. Okay, so this is the syntax of a query to retrieve data from a database. Select star, select all the values from a table where a column has a certain value in it. Okay, so your databases have tables in them. Under those tables, you have columns, and under the columns, you have values here. So here the table name is users. It has two columns, username and password. And under those columns, there are these values available here. Okay, so in our scenario, this is what the query would look like. Select star, which is all values from the table called users, where there's a username column which contains the value Shoaib in it. This is the value I've entered here, username Shoaib. So that value gets added here. And there's one more column called password as well, right? So, and there's a column called password, which has the value in it called Shoaib @321. Okay. So if I read this query out and explain it. So it says select all the values from the table called users. And in that table called users, check if there's a column called username. If there is a column called username, check if there's a value called Shoaib inside it. And if there is a value called Shoaib inside it, correspondingly, now it needs to go and check the second condition as well. So this is the first condition here. It should have a username called Shoaib. And then it should also have a column called password. And in that correspondingly, it should have a value called Shoaib @321. If both these conditions are satisfied in that table called users, only then you get login access. If any of these values don't match, then the query gets denied and the access gets denied in turn. Okay. Is that clear, everyone? Mesh, Arif, Pratap, and Dale, how a query is generated or how this query gets executed and how it checks for authentication. Right. Now, what a hacker can do, guys, is again, in these places, in the place of this username and password, now he can enter malicious SQL payloads. Okay. An example of a very simple SQL payload is single quote or 1 = 1 hash. Okay. He can enter the same thing in the password field also, single quote or 1 = 1 hash. Because now these are the only places where he can add some data to the query or modify the query in a certain way. So whatever I add here, that gets replaced here in the username field and the password field, right? So now in place of Shoaib, it's going to add single quote or 1 = 1 hash. Similarly here also, in place of Shoaib at the rate 321 and password, it's going to add single quote or 1 = 1 hash. Now let's read the modified query. So if I zoom in a bit, just a second. Why is it not zooming in? Okay, anyways, so basically when you read the query now, guys, it says select star, which means select all values now. Uh-oh, my bad. 1 second. Okay. Okay, yeah, much better. So now what I've written in the query is select star, okay, select all the values from a table called users, where now username, rather than giving a value there, I've given a single quote. So that single quote now starts acting as the closing quotation mark for the query. So if you notice, this query already had a closing quotation mark. This was the opening quote here. Oh, 1 second. Yeah, this is the opening quote. And this here is the closing quote. But what I did was I added another single quote. Now that single quote starts acting as a closing quotation mark for the username column. Okay, so now the query reads as select all the values from a table called users where a username has a blank value or 1 = 1. 1 = 1 now is a true statement. So to see, check if the database has a column called username, and in that column, if there's a blank value or if there's a true value. Now, any of these values here, guys, in the database, this value called admin, Joe, Umesh, John, Shoaib, all of these are true values only. A true value is just any existing value. False value is basically a null value. So when you don't have anything in the database, if it's a null database, only then you have a false value. Okay. But if it contains any data, it is always a true value. And this 1 = 1 now is actually equal to the first username in the database called admin. Okay. So just checking if the database has a blank value or if it has a true value. And if any of these conditions get satisfied, then it comments the rest of the statement out. So this hash is used to comment the rest of the statement. So if you remember, now there's an extra quotation mark here, the closing quotation mark. So that extra quotation mark should not cause an issue in the statement. So what we're doing is we're commenting it out with hash. So after the hash, whatever is written is completely disregarded. It is not even compiled or executed at all. Okay. Now you might have a question then, why did I enter it in the password field? So again, if it does not get executed in the username field, if this field is secure, username field is secure, and if it doesn't accept these characters, and if the developer has forgotten to secure the password field, at least then it gets executed here. Okay. So it's always safe to execute it at both places or wherever it's possible. Okay. So now the new query reads as select all the values from the table called users, where a username is a blank value or there's a true value in the database. And if there is a true value, give me login access to the first true value in the database. So this is how you can bypass authentication, guys. If I show you this practically now, so if I go to my browser, I can just search for some login pages now in URL called login.php. I'm using Google Docs here to find login pages now. It doesn't matter if these login pages are HTTP or HTTPS, anything will work. So again, these are all the different login pages I have here, as you can notice. Okay. Now what I can do is, again, let's check for some other pages as well. Yeah, so these are some login pages here, guys. And as you can notice, again, all I have to do is use this default query. So there's some page here with the Pramoti. Oh, I don't know. I'm terrible at Hindi as well. Vidyut Brahmoti. Okay, anyways. So now this is a PHP page. So depending on the extension of the page, the query might change, the commenting might change. If it's ASP, you type hyphen hyphen. If it's JSP, there it is slash star. If it's PHP, it is hash. Because again, depending on the extension, the internal database that is being used, the backend database is different. Okay. So since this is PHP, I can type single quote or 1 = 1 hash, copy and paste. And now when I click on login, if you notice over here, again, it didn't work over here. It says it received an invalid response. So this is preventing this attack. So we can ignore this, go to another page. So there's one more login page here. And again, not sure which organization it belongs to, but we can try out single quote or 1 = 1 hash, copy, paste. There's a security code, OQF4F, I suppose. Login. Let's check if this works. Doesn't seem to work. Maybe here as well. There's one more page here. Let's try here also. Single quote or 1 = 1 hash, copy, paste. And now when I click on submit, here you can see it says admin panel. So some website called cbhedelhi.com, a secure website as well, HTTPS, has given me complete admin access here. If I click on any of these websites, let's say if I click on show data, and in show data, if I select some random session here, random class here, random year here, 2024, if I click on show, oh, nothing here from that session maybe. So maybe April 12th, some random year maybe, show. Oh, as you can see, I've got some data here. So and so roll number, so and so student, son of, or again, whatever it is, son of so and so person, district so and so, how many marks he got. These are all the data, the mark sheets of multiple students and their personal data. So I think this website is basically CBHE in the sense it's the education board according to Delhi. If I copy this, open it up in a new tab, yeah, this is the Central Board of Higher Education for Delhi. I think it should be maintained by government itself. And this website is vulnerable. You can see I've got data over here of all the students through that vulnerability. So without even knowing the username and password for that admin account, I got their entire results over here. Okay, so this is what an SQL injection, what attack looks like. Let's try in some other pages as well. Let's not try to attack any more government websites. I'm not connected on a VPN. So there's one more page here, pkmamahavidyalaya.org. Let's try here, single quote or 1 = 1 hash, copy, paste, login. Okay, doesn't work here. Any other page, all-time cargo. Okay, single quote or 1 = 1 hash, copy, paste, login. And you can see again, welcome to admin panel. View career. Oh, career has not been added, or someone else already deleted this. Okay, or manage agent, or add an entry, whatever it is. I can add all the data if I want to, because I'm the admin account holder here. As you can see, me admin. Okay, so without even knowing the username or password into these web pages, I'm getting login access. That is a very dangerous thing. I should not get access that easily as an admin account without the username or password. So once I've got login access, if I want, I can change the admin password as well. And that would create trouble for the actual website holder, right? So again, as mentioned, guys, without even knowing the username or password, we're trying to bypass authentication. And how is that happening? We're just modifying the query in the backend. Rather than checking for actual username and password, I'm just giving two wrong statements. Okay. So again, one an intentionally wrong statement where I'm saying username is a blank value. So I know this is intentionally wrong. So that's why this second statement always gets executed. So if there's a true value, which is usually the admin value for the first account, and that value gets access. Okay, so that admin account access is given to us directly. So that is what SQL injection is. Again, what we have seen here is a very basic payload, guys. There's tons and tons of other payloads as well. To log in as the first user, to log in as any user, to again get the database details like the column numbers, the data type in the columns, to add our own user to the database, to delete any user from the database, to delete the whole database as well. All these are some advanced options available in the advanced course. And again, this whole thing can be automated as well. So there's a tool called SQL map in your Kali operating system, which if you just give the URL, it automatically tells you if the website is vulnerable or not. Okay. So again, this whole process can be automated as well. But again, as mentioned, all of this is in the scope of the advanced course. Okay, so this is about SQL injection, guys. Any questions, any doubts? Arif, Endil, Pratap, Umesh. Yeah, again, if you notice over here, Arif, there's this website, All Time Cargo is what it says. There's one more website here called cbhedelhi.com. Again, all I did was search for some login pages in URL, login.php. Okay, and search for HTTP pages. I got HTTP and HTTPS both results. Okay, and all you do is, as mentioned, do a trial and error method on each of these pages, whichever you get. Okay, so once I've got any random login page here, I just enter the credentials, single quote, or one equal to one hash, or if it's ASP hyphen hyphen, copy and paste and click on submit and check if it is working. If the page is vulnerable, oh, as you can see, one more page is vulnerable. Welcome to admin panel. ccpindia.in is what it says, as you can see. Okay. So again, oh, apparently there's a lot of websites which are actually vulnerable on the internet with this attack. Okay, this is one which we found here, ccpindia.in. There's one more here called cbhedelhi.com. There's one more here which was some cargo website, all time cargo. Okay, is that clear? Arif? All right. Let me bookmark these websites just so that I can show other students also. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, sure, Pratap. Go ahead. To bypass, yeah, to bypass the authentication, this is one of the simplest payloads available, Pratap. But there's tons and tons of other payloads as well. So if you just search for SQL payloads, injection payloads, GitHub, you can see there's tons and tons of payloads available. And again, we have tools like burp suite and all, where you can actually automate this whole process. So these are all the different payloads available, if you notice. Okay, so if I scroll down, these are all the payloads, one by one. Okay. Again, what you can do is rather than you entering this payload one by one manually, so these are all the payloads again, single quote admin or one equal to one or one colon one equal to one colon one hyphen hyphen. So there's tons and tons of payloads. Okay, any of these could work, but we won't have the time to test all of them manually one by one. So we can input these payloads in a tool like burp suite and automate the process there as well in manual testing. Okay. So yeah, there's tons and tons of payloads. What I'm using is a very generic and a very simple payload, the simplest of all payloads, I would say. Okay, and even with that, mhm, definitely, you can again, all you have to do is copy paste and create your own list from these multiple websites of payloads. And once you have a list, you can again import that list in burp suite. And then once it is in burp suite, you can automate it from there. Right? Okay. So again, some basic payloads you just have to remember the one which I've shown you, single quote or one equal to one hyphen. If not, as mentioned, there's other lots of pages which can provide these payloads to you. You copy paste from there as well and enter each one manually or automate it with Burp Suite as well. Anything works. Okay. Is that clear? All right. So yeah, that's about SQL injection, guys. Let's talk about one more attack today called cross-site scripting. Okay. So now when you talk about cross-site scripting, this is basically in the injection of JavaScript code. So your websites are basically built on three languages, guys. Does anyone know what those three languages are on which your websites are built on? No, no. Yeah, those are programming languages as well, Arif. But again, your websites are built on three specific languages. Have you ever heard about those languages? Do you know what those languages are? Yeah, yeah, it's good. One, that's one. There are other two as well. HTML hypertext markup language, that's one website. One. JavaScript, yes, that's the other one. Third one, Has anyone heard about CSS by any chance? Yeah. Okay. So there's HTML, hypertext markup language, CSS, cascading style sheets, and then JavaScript. Okay. So yeah, definitely. All of these programming languages work hand in hand to build your complete website. So just with HTML, you cannot build your website again. So you have HTML. In HTML, you have CSS code imported, JavaScript codes imported, and all of this together forms your website. Okay. HTML is for the structure of the website. So for example, if I go to any page here, okay, now whatever page I take, the structure of the website is built by HTML. So what needs to be placed where? What headers should be placed where, what images should be placed where, okay, what paragraphs. So if it's a blog, if you have any paragraphs, what paragraph should be placed where. So the structure of the website is decided by HTML. In that website, if you have any coloring, if you have to select any fonts, if you have to select any animations or whatnot, that is added by CSS again. And then for the operation of the website, you have JavaScript. Okay, what button does what? So if you select a button here, if there's a drop-down menu, if there's a login page, if there's an input field, what should happen in that input field when you what should happen when you click on a button, the login button? All that mechanism is decided by JavaScript. HTML is for the structure of the website, CSS is for the styling of the website, and JavaScript is for operations to run certain scripts in the background, okay, to perform various operations on the website. Is that clear, Arif? Right, exactly. Again, you have multiple different there's again other languages also. There's updated versions again, HTML5. There's again JavaScript also has some updates in it recently. So again, all those update, but all as mentioned, all these languages work together to form your website. Now, in your browser, is no matter what website you use, if I right click over here and if I click on inspect element, then you will get an HTML page. As you can see, this is the HTML document here, from the starting HTML tag to the closing HTML tag. Okay. Now, in this web page, whenever you want to add a JavaScript code, it has this syntax here, you see. So whenever you are adding a JavaScript code, there's an opening script tag and there's a closing script tag. This is how you can import JavaScript code inside an HTML code. Okay, so you have opening script tag and some code in between, random code in between, and then the closing script tag. So the closing script tag always has a forward slash in it. Okay, that is what indicates that this is the closing tag. Okay, this is the opening tag. Okay, now when you talk about cross-site scripting attacks, guys, basically as mentioned, your website contains JavaScript code in it, but a user should not be ever allowed to enter his own JavaScript code in a web page. So basically, if I show you an example for this, you can search for these in search bars actually. So if I go to any random website here, mm, I think there was this test website earlier. Yeah. So this is a testing website, guys. We can check for vulnerabilities again. So there's a search bar here if you notice. Now in a search bar, if you enter a certain word, sometimes that word gets reflected back to you. So if I search for Shoaib, you can see that word is getting reflected back to me. It is being shown back to me. What I mean by reflection here is it is adding in the web page. So if I right click over here, and if I click on inspect element, you can see that word has been added as textual data in the website. So that word show up now has been added in the web page. So these are the locations where you look for cross-site scripting attack. Again, reflected accesses. Okay. So whenever you're entering some data in the web page, if that data is getting added to the web page, that is where you look for cross-site scripting attack. So if I modify this word, let's say if I type something else, if I type RF here, if I modify the code in the web page and if I hit enter, you can see in the browser, in the web page also, there's RF here. Okay. So whatever I'm writing here in the search bar, if I type Batman, that word is getting added in the web page here. Okay. So that is a very common feature in websites. So when you're adding data, that data is getting added as text data in the web page as well. Okay. Now, what hackers can do is they can. No, yeah, good question. So that's why this is called reflected access. It's only visible on your system. Okay. But there are other places as well. So again, this is just a search bar. Can you think of any other places where when you enter data, it's visible to everyone else on in the whole world? So in a search bar, this is only visible to us. But there are places and websites where when you enter something, it's visible for everyone in the world. Can you think of any such places in websites? Title. How that? But again, how would that be visible? I don't have the option as a end user to modify the title of a web page, right? For everyone. Uh, so again, when I'm allowed to enter some data in a web page, that data is visible to everyone else. Again, I'm pretty sure you see instances of this every day. Can you think about it? No, no, no. Again, it's simple. Again, you're able to enter some data in a web page, and that data is visible to everyone in the world. Can you think about it? Shall I give you an example? I mean, sorry, a hint. YouTube. What is a very common feature of YouTube? No, you're uploading videos. No, again, I didn't get the point, Umesh. So my question is, my instance here is we are able to enter some data, and that's visible to everyone in the world. So a simple example of that is comments in YouTube, right? We are able to add a comment in with our login page, and that comment, once you enter below a video, that comment is visible to everyone, right? Okay, so just like a search bar, when you're searching for a term, that word is visible only to you. But in YouTube comment boxes, so if there's a video, let's say if I open up a YouTube tab, and under a YouTube video, if I just click on any random video here, and if I scroll down, you see there's an input field here to add a comment. Okay, now when I enter a comment, hello, and if I click on comment, now this comment hello is visible to every user in the world, right? So whenever they visit this web page now, you can see my comment there. It's stored on the website. So this is what I was asking about. So when you're entering some, this was your question, right, Arif? So when I'm entering some data, it's only visible to me. But are there instances where I'm entering data, it's visible to everyone in the world? A comment box is an example of that. Okay. Other examples are review pages, feedback pages, your blog websites where you can write your own blog and make it visible on a web page. So these are also places where you can see the data is getting reflected back to you on the screen. Whatever you're entering, that data is being shown back to you. So these are the places where you look for excesses attacks. Okay. Search bars are reflected excesses. Comment boxes are stored excesses. Again, a very in-depth concept. Let's not get into that right now. It's covered in the advanced course, reflected access and stored accesses. But basically, reflected is where the exploit is only visible on our system. In stored accesses, the exploit is visible on every system in the world because you're able to store the payload on the server and it's visible to everyone in the world. Okay. So we'll talk a lot more about that in the advanced course. But basically, these are the places where you look for. Pratap, I hope you have understood as well. Pratap, Umesh, like what I was trying to explain. Okay, places where you can enter some data and it is visible to everyone in the world. Okay, a comment box, a YouTube comment box. Okay, so comment boxes, search boxes, review pages, feedback pages, blogging websites. Um, any other instances? Yeah, again, those are good enough instances, I would say. Again, if I find any more, I'll let you know definitely. But basically, these are the places where you can enter data, and that data is getting added to the web page. Now, when you're adding that data, it should only be allowed as textual data. But if I'm allowed to enter XSS, I mean, if I'm allowed to enter JavaScript code, and if the page is accepting that JavaScript code, that is called as cross-site scripting attack. So, as an example now, in place of this code, if I write a function, let's say alert, so this is a very simple function in JavaScript to give you a pop-up on the screen. So if I write a function here called alert, and if I write some data in this, you are hacked. And if I copy this entire thing, and if I paste it here, and if I hit enter, now in a secure scenario, this should not execute, guys. But when I click on go, carefully observe, I get a pop-up on the screen which says the exact same words, you're hacked. So it is giving me an alert pop-up. And if I go to the source of the website, source code, you can see it has added here as a separate JavaScript code. So this web page now is allowing a hacker to enter his own code in the website and modify the code of the website. That is cross-site scripting attack. Okay, where a hacker is capable of entering his own code. Now that shouldn't happen. If this simple alert function is working, much more dangerous functions can also work. where hackers can steal cookies from the website. They can log in, they can get credential information from the website. They can deface the entire website. Okay, or they can try to get remote connections of other people from this script. Okay, so there's tons and tons of scripts available on the internet to perform a lot more attacks. But a simple test case is this alert script. If this script is working, any script in the world will work. Okay, so that's the test case that our pen testers should look for. If a page is allowing you to execute JavaScript code or not. Okay. Sometimes if alert is not allowed, you can use other words also. You can use something like prompt, PROMPT, or you can use confirm. These are all different types of functions, okay, to give you pop-ups on a screen. So if I copy paste that, and if I click on go, you can see even confirm works. With confirm, you get OK and cancel these options. Okay. So as mentioned, your code should not be added like this. Okay. A secure scenario is Google now. So if I go to Google, this here also we have search bars. So if I search for sure, that word gets reflected multiple times to me in the web page. But when I enter the script, you can see when I hit enter, script doesn't execute. I don't get any pop-up on the screen. So this is an example of a secure scenario. Okay. And this here is an example of an insecure scenario where it is executing and adding our code to the web page. Okay. So this is called cross-site scripting, guys. Injection of JavaScript code into a web page can be used to steal cookies, deface websites, perform phishing attacks, perform URL redirection, and a lot more. So we'll learn how to hack a website as well. What can be done for exploitation, okay, with the advanced course. So there's multiple payloads. This is the default test cases. Again, sometimes when script is not allowed in lowercase, you can change the case. You can use other scripts as well, other tags rather than script tag, body tag, image tag, a tag. But again, as mentioned, advanced test cases in the advanced course. Okay. But this is what XSS is, guys. You able to inject JavaScript code in a web page and performing these attacks is called as cross-site scripting. Is that clear? Uh, Again, as mentioned, guys, these are somewhat advanced topics, so I'm unable to go in depth because that would confuse you a bit. But again, as mentioned, these are topics we'll be learning in the advanced course. So if anyone's interested, guys, as mentioned earlier, I think I've mentioned this multiple times. I'm starting a new batch from this weekend. So Arif, for your time slot, I'm starting a separate batch as well. So according to your suitable timings, there's a batch according to your time slot. Pratap, according to your time slot, there's a suitable batch for you as well. So if you're interested, guys, we'll be starting this batch from this Saturday, Sundays, and Mondays. Okay. So yeah, we'll discuss that separately though, anyhow. But as mentioned, guys, if anyone is interested, do let me know. I have an advanced course for this starting from this Saturday. We have classes on Saturday and Sunday, specifically for web application testing. And if anyone is interested, just ping me or directly message me, and I'll give you the details regarding that. Pratap, I think I have a confirmation from you. You're continuing from Saturday and Sunday. You're joining this from Saturday, Sundays, right? Sure, sure, sure. Definitely. Or if I'll discuss with you as well separately. And I'll just confirm with you as well. Sure. So yeah, sure, sure, Arif. No worries. So yeah, that's that, guys. Nothing further. Let's exit the session here. We'll discuss a few more vulnerabilities in the session tomorrow. We'll talk about a tool called Burp. Sorry, Arif, coming in? Yeah, tomorrow is the last class. We have a few more vulnerabilities to discuss in web pen testing, and I have a few resources to share with you. Some important resources. So we'll talk about that. Mhm. Interview question. I'll be sharing that myself. I'll share some resume samples. I'll share some important interview questions. I'll share some material to prepare on for the interviews. I'll be sharing all the data. Again, the your consultancy might prepare your resume, and they might again give you place you on interviews again. Okay, that's their responsibility. Yeah, you you would have to start preparation. Yeah, on your sure, sure. Yes, we'll discuss that. Sure. Okay, Arif. Bye-bye. Bye, guys. Let's connect back tomorrow at the same time to have our last session. I will, Arif. Sure. Bye-bye.